Hey everyone, really warm welcome back to the channel and hope you're doing well. Today I want to talk not just about caravans but about alternatives to caravans, particularly for families, because one of the key questions I think we had in our mind when we knew we didn't want to be in a tent anymore, but we weren't quite sure about whether we wanted a massive family-sized caravan, was what the alternatives were. And so if you've been following the channel for a while, you know that led us through the route of, first of all, we had a folding camper. We had a Pennine called a Quart 6, but became the Pathfinder. So we had the silver-sided Quart 6 version of the Pathfinder. And then we actually went to a trailer tent, which sounds a bit like it's going backwards, but that move was driven by space, and I'll say a bit more about that later on. And then, and only then, we got to the caravan ownership piece of our journey. So I thought I'd pick up some of the footage that I picked up at the caravan show last time I was up at the NEC, and explain the thought processes that we had, in case you're going through exactly the same sort of thought process yourself and trying to work out what works for you. Because just because something works for me doesn't mean it works for you. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the models that are alternatives, and I'll talk about what I, from our experience, think is really good about it, and things that might be the downsides, of course. So ups and downsides of alternatives to caravans. So this first one is a really cool trailer tent that caught my eye. So this is by Cruiser. It's called the Open Air. So the thing that I really like about this is that the main bed, so the bed that's formed from the top of the trailer, and of course the trailer is sort of empty underneath, so it's full of storage for all of the bits of canvas and all your camping gear and stuff. The bed itself is longitudinal, so the worst thing in a trailer tent that has a low roof is being the inside person on a sideways bed, and you get sort of trapped there. It's even worse to climb over the other person if you need to get out in the middle of the night for a wee, if you've had too much tea or wine or whatever. Anyway, so the thing I really like about this one is that it's longitudinal. The other really cool thing here is you see those little zip sections on the side. You can attach an extra little pod on the back of these, so you can have one of these and put two small kids in, or by the time they get to teenagers they might even want one of these each, which would be super flexible in terms of space. And Cruiser brought a few other trailer tents along with them. So there's the Waterfront, which again has the pods on the side available, but this Waterfront has a horizontal bed, so not necessarily so user friendly, but rather than an airframe which would pump up quickly, this one is all hinged, so it folds out reasonably easily. There are other brands, of course, that do the same sort of thing, so all the camplets fold out a bit like an umbrella mechanism, so come round and then come over. So trailer tents are getting a lot easier to put up, because back in the old days it was basically a frame tent, which meant trailer tents were an absolute pain in the neck. So these days, because they're getting much more simple, they are of course much easier to set up, and therefore makes it a viable alternative as a camping vehicle. Of course it's still a tent, usually a beautiful canvas tent, so wonderfully breathable in hot weather, but you do have the downside that if it gets soaked, and most of the time in the UK, let's face it probably will get soaked, then you've got to have space at home to at least be able to open it up and give that canvas time to dry. Otherwise it's going to turn into a mouldy mess. So that's the downsides and the upsides of trailer tents. And then of course next up in sort of size are folding campers, and there's two main competitors here. So this is the Pennine Pathfinder that we're looking around here. So the Pathfinder has undoubtedly the best facility, so it's got a full washroom, running water and so on. Ours had hot water in, ours had a blown air heating system, basically a built-in fan heater, and sinks and taps and so on. The main competitor is the Opus folding camper. This has a much easier setup, as well as the awning itself, because especially if you buy the Air Opus, which I think is all they're selling now. So also on the plus side, it does have bigger beds, but of course you have to balance the facilities it's got on board against that. So although it's the much bigger trailer, the Opus is much more like a sort of trailer tent in terms of facilities that are on board. You've got the hob and you've got the sink, but you don't have any washroom facilities. And the fridge that's supplied is very similar to ones you can get to go in tents and so on.
Yours would be like solid bamboo, so you probably haven't got. Can you see where that's like engineered?
Yes.
So it's like a darker line.
Yeah, nice. No, ours is quite pale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were just made.
Okay.
So yeah, they had the. Did you say
Yeah.
3?
2.
One over there. One here.
Yeah.
Or, of course, you've got the sort of hybrid solution. Maybe if you're a grandparent or you've got teenagers, then that might be the better way of doing it, in that you could go for a small caravan. So you could choose just a really luxurious 2-berth, say, which had long parallel sofas at the front that you can use as single beds, and then you expect to use it every time somebody comes with you, with an awning, possibly even with a pod on each side of the awning, so that if you've got teenagers, they've got their own little bedroom and so on. And you know, in anything but really the deepest, coldest, freezing parts of winter, you can set teenagers up in there with an electric blanket and possibly even a small little heater to keep the chill off of the air around them as they're getting in and out of bed. And it's a small part of the awning, so it's not as if you're trying to heat the entire awning. Obviously it's not properly insulating, so it's just about blowing warm air across them while they're getting changed, getting in and out of bed, all that sort of stuff. So you can go for something conventional like this nice Swift. So 2 lovely parallel front sofas there to give you a lovely lounge capability, or you can go for something unconventional like, you know, a Tab, something like this, or indeed an Ariba. The other thing that caught my eye, and definitely counts as thinking outside the box, I think, is this Caravan by Weinsberg. And of course the normal problem with the 2-berth is that although you've got plenty of sort of sofa lounging space, then you have to make up the bed for whomever's sleeping inside the caravan every night. But this one solves that problem. So not only do you get a massive U-shaped rear lounge, but also, look, drop down bed. So that means you can leave all your bedding up there during the day, and you don't have the hassle of making up the bed during the night time. So I thought this was brilliant. I really, really liked this Weinsberg. I think if I was buying a caravan for just me, this is probably my favourite at the moment. It's got great sort of kitchen facilities and a front side washroom as well. So yeah, really liked this one. So I hope that comparison was useful, and hearing about some of the things we were thinking about when it was caravan switching times. It will sound absolutely stupid, but the comparison I was making was whether we bought a really big, you know, one of those big twin axles, the layout where you have the fixed double bed at the back, then you have the central washroom, and then the 2 parallel sofas at the front. Because after all, my boys were 7 and 10 when we were buying the caravan, but I knew we wanted to keep it for quite a few years. So I knew we were looking for 4 adult-sized sleeping spaces. So it was literally that sort of big twin axle, or a 2-berth, and chucking them out into an awning all the time, but they weren't really old enough for that. Hence this Ariba feeling with its upstairs roof bed. was absolutely perfect for us. And I'll chuck some footage in here of the 442, which I looked around at the show, which is the same version of ours but has parallel rear single beds. I think the ideal layout of that for me would be to have that pop-up bed upstairs, but instead of the fixed double beds at the back, it would have been far more practical a family space if those had been sofa. So you end up with a double dinette downstairs, one that folds into a horizontal double bed, and a longitudinal double bed, or 2 singles downstairs. That would have been even better, but they don't make that, of course. Anyway, on that note, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now. See ya.